New updates around the COVID vaccines. Biden says that anyone making under 400,000 will not have to pay a penny in taxes, and the CIA makes a woke advertisement for trying to improve recruitment. These stories and more on your May 4th Not So News update. Please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and let's dive on in. Starting us off from the Wall Street Journal, Moderna to deliver a COVID-19 vaccine to hard-hit developing world. This is also in the back, we have in the back of our minds, a story that was released last week with Bill Gates saying that he didn't think it was a good idea to give the intellectual property around vaccines to these developing nations. And we see kind of why here is that he wants the United States to be, the one selling these vaccines. We have to remember there's been big upticks in India and Brazil, which are obviously developing countries, as we begin to read. Moderna incorporated on Monday that it will supply 34 million doses of a COVID-19 vaccine to international program that distributes free shots to poor countries. Doses will be delivered in the fourth quarter of 2021 to the World Health Organization-backed COVAX initiative, a program financed mostly by Western governments that offers free coronavirus vaccines to 92 low and middle income countries across the world. COVAX will retain an option to purchase another 466 million doses in 2022, according to Moderna and Gaffe, one of the organizations behind the vaccine aid program. The announcement comes as the pandemic accelerates in developing countries such as India and Brazil, which have been reporting record numbers of deaths amid a surge of coronavirus infections that have overwhelmed their healthcare systems. So, something to note, just early on, they said that they were providing free coronavirus vaccines. That's not necessarily true. It's free to the individuals that will be receiving the vaccines. However, the organization, with the WHO and COVAX are paying these organizations to create vaccines. So there is a bit of a scandal here, in my opinion, behind the not releasing the intellectual property around the vaccines. Makes me think that a lot of this is being done for profit rather than for saving lives. Coming out of the New York Times, reaching herd immunity is unlikely in the U.S., experts now believe. We have to remember, we've initially, when dealing with this pandemic, weren't even thinking about things like herd immunity or even really how long the mask type mandates would be done. The initial idea was that we were going to have the 2 weeks to slow the spread, initially to just slow the spread, make it so hospitals had the capabilities of increasing their COVID wards so that they could deal with the onslaught of COVID patients. The fact that we're still in any type of lockdown shows what a lie that was early on, and it shows the disgrace that we have in our experts on any type of pandemic handling. Early in the pandemic, when vaccines for the coronavirus were still just a glimmer on the horizon, the term herd immunity came to signify the endgame, the point when enough Americans would be protected from the virus so that we would be rid of the pathogen and reclaim our lives. Now more than half of the adults in the U.S. have been inoculated with at least one dose of the vaccine, but daily vaccination rates are slipping, and there's widespread consensus among scientists and public health experts that the herd immunity threshold is not attainable, at least not in the foreseeable future, and perhaps not ever. Instead, they are coming to the conclusion that rather than making a long-promised exit, the virus will most likely become a manageable threat that will continue to circulate in the United States for years to come, still causing hospitalizations and deaths in much smaller numbers. How much smaller is uncertain and depends in part on how much of the nation and the world becomes vaccinated and how the coronavirus evolves. It is already clear, however, that the virus is changing too quickly, new variants are spreading too easily, and vaccinations is proceeding too slowly for herd immunity to be within reach anytime soon. Continued immunizations, especially for people at high risk because of age, exposure, or health status, will be crucial in limiting the severity of outbreaks, if not their frequency, experts believe. The one thing that the New York Times actually get right in this is the idea that herd immunity is really related to the virus mutation rate. They talk about how the virus is changing too quickly, and this is the obvious issue that we had as a result of the slow the spread. We did not make our decisions based on stopping the spread, or we did not make our decisions based on let it spread as quickly as possible to get it over with. The fact that we have slowed the spread makes it so that we have allowed the virus, in my opinion, to mutate. And that is what is the obvious result that everyone was talking about, is by allowing the virus to just barely survive, and our slowly reopening process is making it so we've allowed the ability for the mutations to happen. you have to kill it very quickly, and that was only done one of two ways. Either let it spread as quickly as possible, or don't let it spread at all. The half-assed response by most countries, including the US, is why we're in this particular predicament. MSNBC had an interview with Bill Nye where they report the following. More than 100 million Americans are now fully vaccinated against COVID-19, but the number of people who still want to get inoculated is plummeting. That being fueled in part due to anti-vaccine rhetoric from the right. Everyone is saying it's not fair to make me wear a mask. It's not fair to make me get vaccinated. Bill Nye tells NBC's Mehdi Hassan, well, it's not fair to everyone else if you become an incubator for a variant, doggone it. There's two things here that are obvious issues. One, the highest rate of vaccine hesitancy is within liberal black communities. It is not within the right-wing communities, specifically because we even had Trump come out and say he got the vaccine, which, yes, there is a right-wing anti-vax crowd. However, that is not in any way a new phenomenon. There is a new phenomenon in the left when it comes to vaccine hesitancy. Finally, they say it's not fair to everyone else for you to become an incubator for a variant. That does hit one of two things. One, it's not, in my opinion, it's their right to die to the coronavirus if they want to. And then the fact that if they become a variant, then that is already expected based on the article we just read with the New York Times. And in my opinion, what we're seeing is that the liberal news media organizations are trying to hit this from both sides, and unfortunately, they're just counteracting each other's narrative. Coming from CNN Politics, the Biden team may partner with private firms to surveil suspected domestic terrorists online. This is obviously in the afterthought of the January 6th riots, and in my opinion, this shows how much of an overreach we're seeing from the federal government. At some point, we need to say that this is just stupid and that they're wasting way too much money on a single event. Let's remember, they've allowed cities to burn down for the last year or so, and in my opinion, the January 6th riot is nothing compared to those types of events. In their article, the Biden administration is considering using outside firms to track extremist chatters by American online, an effort that would expand the government's ability to gather intelligence, but could draw criticism over surveillance of U.S. citizens. The Department of Homeland Security is limited in how it can monitor citizens online without justification and is banned from activities like assuming false identities to gain access to private messaging apps used by extremist groups such as the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers. Instead, federal authorities can only browse through unprotected information on social media sites like Twitter and Facebook and other open online platforms. The plan being discussed inside DHS, according to multiple sources, would in effect allow the department to circumvent those limits. The source familiar with the effort said it is not about decrypting data, but rather using outside entities who can legally access these private groups to gather a large amount of information that could help DHS identify key narratives as they emerge. So what we see here is obviously an overreach by the government. What they're trying to do is what would be illegal for the government to do. So what they're instead doing is hiring a private organization to do the work for the government. And they will call the right fascist. As far as I'm concerned, this is as fascist of a policy as you can possibly have by saying that an organization can get paid by the government to do something that would be illegal for the government. If this is not outrageous, I don't fucking know what is. Coming from Twitter, we see Buck Sexton reports on the following for a video that was initially posted by Jack Prospiek. Jack Prospiek's comment was, it turns out the CIA was behind woke all along, seems kind of obvious in hindsight. Buck said the CIA once led a mission against the Soviets, then Al-Qaeda, but is now a slothful, wasteful bureaucracy overrun with politically correct slogans and militant mediocrity as a whole intelligence community. What they're commenting on is a video posted by the CIA regarding how they are essentially having a lot of critical race theory and essentially promoting things like women in the workplace, attacking the patriarchy, etc. And it just shows, based on our last story, how wasteful the spending is going on in the current government, how obviously biased we see these organizations. And it turns out, as far as I'm concerned, Trump was right on everything regarding the deep state, because they got something like this out in a matter of months after Biden was elected. Coming from Twitter, a video of Biden making the following comments.
The reason I'm bothering to do this is I keep hearing on the press, Biden's going to raise your taxes. Anybody making less than $400,000 a year will not pay a single penny in taxes.
So a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Biden said that the tax rate for individual, or CNN posted that the tax rate for individuals making under 100,000 would be about 1%. Turns out they were wrong. Biden is saying that anyone making less than 400,000 a year will not pay a single penny in taxes. Obviously, this is a bold-faced lie. Everyone knows it. I think what he probably intended to say was that the individual, they won't pay more in taxes, but that is a very big gaffe. That is his comments, and everyone knows that this is not actually true. And as far as I'm concerned, Biden team needs to make some type of update for this type of remark. And this is your May 4th Not So News update. Once again, please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and have a good one.